in a blind draft, except
Well,
I
he didn't want to
had
head
Mitt
towards
Romney.
Vegas.
Mitt Romney's out of the race.
I know, isn't that's? I just heard it. It's sad.
It is a little
And
bit sad.
I mean, as I sent that on Twitter, you'd think he would have waited to announce it during Black History Month.
Yes. Yes, of course.
I couldn't help that one. Sorry. Okay.
Well, we should talk about that briefly, although, I mean, at the end of the day, I think Mitt Romney was just afraid, frankly, of losing again. I think he could have very well been the nominee, and he would have lost again. And I think that would have been just really super embarrassing.
Yeah, well, I mean, it seemed to me that, as much as it seems like we always heard about these people that were so excited for him to be back in the race, it's always a bad sign when none of those people will actually assign their own name to those comments.
Right.
It's always like, anonymous funder W from an anonymous funder X from blah, 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 blah. I mean, were there any people that you could think of besides his spokesperson? Even a number of people that had worked in high positions in his campaign are already with Jeb Bush,
That's right,
or Rand Paul, or somebody else. I mean, I don't think this, much like Mitt Romney's entire political career, I don't think was very well thought out. I mean, for a guy that's supposed to be this guy that crunches numbers and plans things perfectly as a businessman, he should have known that the GOP field was going to form early. People that the top talent, top activists, top funders and the rest, campaign staff were going to get on campaigns early because Rand Paul, even, Jeb announced whatever it was now, maybe
Right.
2 months ago, I don't remember, but Rand Paul's been talking about this pretty much, for like a year now. Same with Marco Rubio and same with others. And even if they haven't pulled the trigger, they've made it clear enough to the people around them that they're running, while he and his wife were saying as of like 2 or 3 months ago, there's no way they would run. So it's kind of sad that you have to do that so early because our campaigns take forever. I mean, I'm not going to feel much sympathy for Romney, but that's the way it happened. He just sort of seemed like he jumped in out of nowhere. One night he felt a ping of maybe I could have done it, and then just started calling people. Most of them, I'm sure, were already spoken for.
Yeah, I mean, but the fact is, I think, look, he got everything he wanted to get out of this, right? I mean, he basically has been on a reformation tour for the past 2 years to convince people that he wasn't a loser, that he could win and that he should win, and et cetera, et cetera. And frankly, if that's your agenda, if you don't want to go down in the record books as a big loser, he's actually done a pretty good job of that, leaving just at the right time. I think this is a smart time for him to basically announce that he wasn't going to do it. And now, he looks like, they'll be saying sometime this time next year, if only Romney was in the race.
So that's what you think that was. Do you think that was the plan all along?
I think that, look, if he had been met with overwhelming joy that he was coming back, that may have changed. But I think it was quite clear to them, like, no, he's not going to win. And
that was the other big problem. Is just that, for lack of a better term, he's as much of a dick, it seems, privately as he comes off publicly. I mean, whatever the rest of us think about a lot of those other candidates, and I don't think very nice things about any of them, if you just remember back to 2008, when they were running, the one thing by the end there we had kind of the final four that McCain, Huckabee, and Giuliani all seemed to have in common is they all hated Romney.
That's right.
And we're not talking about, cuddly people here, right? I mean, we're talking about Giuliani and McCain. I mean, and Huckabee, of course, too, but those two are famous for their tempers and for being the bastards that they are. And yet they all seem to be united in the fact that they could not stand Mitt Romney. And I think that showed in this, too, that maybe if he was this Cincinnatus figure coming to save everybody, the Roman general, who'll come take over, I mean, maybe then everybody would have said, oh, my God, Mitt Romney, and people would have just cleared the way for him. But that not only did that not happen, people who had worked with him before bagged on him. And then you had people with major influence like Rupert Murdoch, he only has that TV station, saying, he was a terrible candidate, and other
Right.
people. I mean, so not only did he have the talk radio universe against him, the loonies because he's not loony enough, but even more sort of establishment Republicanism, for whatever that is, of the insiders both in D.C. and Fox News, places like that, they didn't want him either. And so there was no way.
You know,
And
it's
the thing is,
interesting.
here's one last thing I'll say, which is I agree that in the short term, this may help improve him historically, but it's not going to change anything in the long run. No one's going to remember when he dropped out. And 20 years from now, if kids are studying history books, I mean, you know, history books without creation science and global warming being a hoax, actual history, you'll learn about this the way you learn about Adlai Stevenson and people like that. You'll learn that this guy couldn't stop running and couldn't win.
Right, that's possible. I mean, I think there's something to that. You know, the thing that sticks out for me in terms of Romney being an a-hole is not the, you know, obviously the 47% thing. The thing that sticks out to me is the same thing that sticks out with Andrew Cuomo, which is when Mitt Romney said if his grandfather had stayed in Mexico, implying that if Romney had been more associated with being a Latino, he would have won.
Did Cuomo say something like that?
And Cuomo said it's really hard, something to the effect of like, it's really hard. It's been a detriment having the last name Cuomo because you get all of his enemies, but not his friends. And it's like the complete,
I remember that. Yeah. Oh, God.
It's not just the privilege. It is the total lack of awareness of the privilege that comes through there. That you could actually articulate this out loud. You know, so much so that like this is an obvious insight. If I was Latino instead of the son of a governor and a former head of the largest car company.
Car companies and a multi-millionaire.
I would have had a much better shot at being president than all the benefit I got out of that. Or the same with Cuomo.
A legitimate presidential candidate, and what was he, Secretary of Health and Human Services or something like that? Was HUD?
Right.
I mean, yeah, it was ridiculous. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, that is the sign, in my estimation, of a pure a-hole. Somebody who is literally got so much privilege, and not just that, they have so much privilege, and they actually perceive their privilege as something that's holding them back from really getting what they really deserve.
That's what's amazing, because in the society we live in today, where a lot of jobs and a lot of these kinds of things, particularly media jobs, have stopped being handed out in many places due to talent. And now it's just sort of, hey, that person comes in with a name. I mean, think of the daughters of past presidential candidates. And it mostly is daughters, frankly, and the TV gigs they've gotten right recently. You can go through Huntsman, McCain, you know, you can go through Chelsea Clinton, and on and on. The thing is at least most of them, you know, I think Meghan McCain might have said that, you know, it wasn't because of her father or something, and she's an idiot. But I think most of the other ones, from Abby Huntsman to Chelsea Clinton, at least seem to have some sort of knowledge not to say things like that because they get it. That they wouldn't be there unless it was for their famous family. You know what I mean?
And you know
these
what?
guys just don't seem to get it.
I'm not so excited about nepotism and whatnot, but
I'm not excited about it at all. But at
look,
least
you can't help who your
it.
parents are. But at the very least, you should have some awareness of I have a tremendous amount of advantages because of this, and go forward from there. All right, let's leave.
And let me just add one thing to that quickly, which is, and I think any of us should have that knowledge. You know, and that's the other thing that burned me up about the Romney thing is it wasn't even his dad, you know, at the company he was at and everything. It was all how, oh, we started off with nothing, you know, except for the house your dad bought you and the stock portfolio, right? I mean, what gets me angry is that I feel like I've done some successful things, but I know I started off with advantages.
Right.
I know that my parents helped, you know, actually they paid for my college. How many people have that?
Right.
You know, so I mean, really on a basic thing, you don't have to even be extraordinarily wealthy, but if you're just at a point in our society today where you get some help from your family along the way, you should appreciate that that's not the way it is for most people.